Now, police say the shooter, Marvin Patterson, then turned the gun on himself. 8 News Now reporter Lauren Negretti with the disturbing audio.
Denise, Brian, police say Patterson shot and killed his wife, daughter, and stepdaughter and shot her son. At last check, family members say the son, DJ, is still fighting for his life in the hospital. A warning, the following audio may be hard to hear.
One of the children's gasping. It looks like they've all been shot in the back of the head. The 2 adults are dead in the bed.
Okay. And do they have gunshot wounds too? Fire medical service.
Yes.
Okay.
Gunshot wounds and blood coming out their ear.
On the morning of December 11th, 2023, just one day after her 34th birthday, a brother walked into an apartment in Las Vegas expecting to check on family. What he found instead would shatter an entire community and expose a broken system that let a monster walk free.
They're all gone. I need the police. I don't know who it is to come.
You need police or medical?
I need medical. I hear one of the kids, they're breathing. They're trying to breathe. So, my nieces, his nephews, I think they're gone. And then he was in the bed with his wife, and they're deceased as well.
Inside that second-story apartment, for people lay dying, shot execution style in the head. A mother, 2 little girls, and an 11-year-old boy barely clinging to life. The man who pulled the trigger? He was supposed to be behind bars. Instead, he was wearing nothing but an ankle monitor, living in the same apartment with the very children he'd been accused of abusing. This is the story of Schinara Patterson and the deadly price 3 innocent children paid when the justice system failed them. Let's rewind. Let's go back to when Schinara Patterson was still here, still smiling, still fighting to give her kids a better life. Friends called her Nara. She was 34 years old, born and raised right here in Las Vegas. To those who knew her, Nara was pure light. Isaiah Robinson went to Valley High with Nara. Years later, he'd remember her as someone unforgettable. Giddy, uppity, smiling, energetic, just a fun person all the way around. A great soul. But what defined Nara most wasn't her energy, it was her love for her children. 3 beautiful kids. Kezia Cohn, 14 years old, a teenager with her whole life ahead of her. Derek, who'd just turned 11 on December 6th. And little Zi'Myra, only 6 years old, still believing in magic. As Isaiah would say, Nara would go to the moon and back for her kids. She worked as a hairdresser, grinding every day to make ends meet in one of America's toughest cities to survive in. Vegas might be all glitz and glamour on the Strip, but for working-class families in the West Side, it's a different story. In 2019, Schinara married Marvin Ray Patterson. He was 42, born and raised in Vegas, just like her. To the outside world, they looked like a regular blended family trying to make it work. But behind closed doors, something was deeply, horrifically wrong. See, what Nara's friends didn't know, what maybe even Nara herself was trying to process, was that the man sleeping next to her at night, the man she'd sworn to build a life with, was a predator. And the system knew it. October 2022, Marvin Patterson was arrested and hit with charges that would make your stomach turn. 9 felony counts. Let me break that down for you. 5 counts of lewdness with a child under 14. 2 counts of sexual assault on a minor under 16. 1 count of lewdness with a child under 16. 1 count of kidnapping a minor. These weren't new crimes. According to court records, these alleged crimes spanned from 2013 to 2022, nearly a decade of abuse. And the victims? Patterson knew all of them. Now here's where you need to pay attention, because this is where the system started failing these kids. When Patterson was first arrested, Pro Tem Judge Jessica Green set his bail at $100,000. She ordered high-level electronic monitoring. He had to surrender his passport. And most importantly, he was ordered to stay away from children under 18. That sounds right, doesn't it? A man accused of sexually abusing children shouldn't be anywhere near kids. But then, something happened. 2 months later, in December 2022, Las Vegas Justice of the Peace Diana Sullivan made a decision that would seal the fate of 3 innocent children. She reduced Patterson's bail from $100,000 down to just $10,000. Let that sink in. A man facing 9 felony counts of child abuse, a man accused of almost a decade of predatory behavior, was allowed to post a measly $10,000 bail and walk out with nothing but an ankle monitor. The Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson said his prosecutors argued strenuously against the bail reduction. It didn't matter. Patterson posted bond through a Las Vegas bail company. December 2022, he walked free. And Schinara Patterson? She was about to walk into the final year of her life. Now you're probably asking yourself the same question every parent watching this is asking. How the hell does a judge cut bail by 90% for a child predator? When reporters pressed Judge Sullivan on this, she pointed to a 2020 Nevada Supreme Court decision called Valdez-Jimenez versus 8th Judicial Court. Basically, this ruling said judges need to find the least restrictive means to ensure a defendant's court appearance and consider whether they're a flight risk or danger to the community. Patterson's defense attorney, Brett Whipple, argued his client wasn't a flight risk because he'd self-surrendered when the charges dropped. The motion also claimed Patterson couldn't afford the $100,000 bail. He was living beyond his means. But here's what gets me. Here's what should make every single one of you sick to your stomach. That same defense motion said Patterson had several individuals who can come forward to testify on behalf of his character. His brother, his wife, his ex-girlfriend, and his son. His wife. They're talking about Schinara, the woman he'd later execute while she slept. And get this. The motion describes their marriage as a good relationship where they share responsibilities for the children. What would you have done if you were Judge Sullivan? You got a man accused of sexually abusing multiple children over nearly a decade. The district attorney is fighting to keep him locked up. The evidence is stacking up. But you're also bound by a Supreme Court ruling that says defendants shouldn't sit in jail just because they're broke. It's a hell of a position to be in. But here's the truth. When you're weighing the financial freedom of an accused child predator against the safety of children, there should be no debate. So Patterson walks out in December 2022 with that ankle monitor strapped to his leg. High-level electronic monitoring, they called it. He's not supposed to be around kids under 18. His trial is set for April 2024. But here's where things get murky and where this story becomes even more tragic. Fast forward to late 2023. Schinara had been struggling. According to her previous landlord, she was evicted from her Las Vegas home in late November because she couldn't pay rent. Think about that for a second. You're a single mom working as a hairdresser in Vegas, a city where the cost of living is crushing people. You've got 3 kids depending on you. You just got evicted. Where do you go? Now here's the devastating part. According to Metro Police, Patterson was following the rules of his electronic monitoring, and all the locations he was monitored at, including the apartment where the murder-suicide happened, were approved. Let me say that again. The apartment where he'd later kill Schinara and the children? Approved by the monitoring system. So this man, accused of abusing children, supposedly barred from being around kids under 18, is living in the same apartment with a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And the system said, what? That's fine? Nara's best friend since high school, Kavonia Lay, would later say something chilling. When asked if she thought Patterson was capable of murder, she said no. But when pressed further about Patterson, she replied, I don't like Marvin. Even the people close to Nara saw something off about this man. But what could they do? What could anyone do when the system had already decided he wasn't dangerous enough to keep locked up? December 2023 rolls around. Patterson's trial is just 4 months away. He's been on house arrest for a full year now, and the walls are closing in. On the night of December 10th, the Sunday before everything went to hell, Patterson sent text messages to his brother that painted a picture of a man spiraling. According to law enforcement sources, Patterson messaged his brother that he was getting evicted and his car had been repossessed. The pressure was mounting. Money problems, legal problems, a trial date approaching where he'd have to face the evidence of nearly a decade of alleged abuse. Meanwhile, December 10th was also Schinara's birthday. She just turned 34. Did she celebrate? Did she smile that day, not knowing it would be her last birthday ever? Did she tuck her babies in that night, kiss their foreheads, tell them she loved them? Because the next morning, everything would end. December 11th, 2023, Monday morning. Around 10 a.m., Patterson's brother, the same one who'd received those troubled texts the night before, arrived at the Loreto and Palacio apartments on Oso Blanca Road, near Durango in U.S. Highway 95. He was just checking in like any concerned brother would. The 911 call he made, it's one of the most haunting recordings you'll ever hear. The dispatcher struggles to keep him focused. He's barely able to speak. At one point, you can hear him telling someone at the scene, "They're all gone." But they weren't all gone. Not yet. I hear one of the kids. "They're breathing. They're trying to breathe," he tells the dispatcher. That was Derek, 11 years old, just 5 days past his birthday. Shot in the head like the others, but somehow impossibly still fighting. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police flood the scene. When they walk into that second-story apartment, they find a massacre. The Clark County coroner would later release the details. Each victim died from gunshot wounds to the head. Multiple shots. Execution style. Schinara Patterson, 34 years old, dead. Kezia Cohn, 14 years old, a freshman in high school, dead. Zi'Myra Patterson, 6 years old, still believed in Santa Claus, dead. And Marvin Ray Patterson, 42 years old, dead by suicide from a gunshot wound to the head. The coward took the easy way out. He didn't have to face what he'd done. Didn't have to look the families in the eye. Didn't have to sit in a courtroom and hear the evidence against him. He just pulled the trigger on himself, after he'd pulled it on 3 innocent children and the woman who trusted him. Derek was rushed to University Medical Center. According to dispatch communications, he was in an agonal state, meaning near death. Paramedics were performing CPR because he had no pulse. Think about this kid for a second. He just celebrated his 11th birthday 5 days earlier. December 6th. He probably got presents, maybe a cake. His mom probably hugged him tight and told him how much she loved him. Now he's fighting for his life with a bullet in his head, and everyone he loves is gone. What goes through your mind when you're 11 years old and waking up in a hospital bed, tubes and wires attached to you, and slowly realizing your mom's not there, your sisters aren't there? What would you do if you were Derek? How do you come back from that? According to friends at a fundraiser days later, Derek had started showing brain activity and they were praying for his recovery. Brain activity, that's what we were celebrating. That this child's brain was still working after being shot in the head by the man who was supposed to protect him. December 12th, 2023, the day after the murders, the historic west side of Las Vegas came together for a vigil. Nara's mother, James Zeta Bernouti, spoke through her tears. She told reporters, this was not supposed to happen. She was sweet, kind, do anything for you. And then she said the words everyone was thinking. If he would have been in jail, none of this would have happened. Where he was supposed to be, I don't think they should have let him out at all. 3 days later, on December 14th, something beautiful happened in the midst of all this horror. Isaiah Robinson, Nara's childhood friend from Valley High, set up his food truck, Trap Wings, in the parking lot of MLK Plaza. He donated every single penny from sales that day to help cover funeral costs and Derek's hospital bills. The line wrapped around the block. People who'd never met Nara showed up just to help. By the end of the day, he'd almost sold out completely. Nara's sister, Michaela Bernouti, started a GoFundMe. She wrote, just one day after my sister's birthday, December 11th, her life was taken away by her husband, along with her beautiful, sweet baby Zi'Myra, 6 years old, and Kezia, 14 years old. Her son Derek, who just turned December 11th, 6th, is still in the hospital fighting for his life. By the time they laid Nara and her daughters to rest on December 29th, the community had raised thousands of dollars. People came together. They mourned. They demanded answers. But answers? Those were harder to come by. As the story spread across Vegas and then the nation, one question dominated every conversation. How did this happen? Advocacy groups went ballistic. Jasmine Lee, a victim's advocate, called the bail reduction a slap in the face to the victims and demanded accountability. District Attorney Steve Wolfson didn't hold back either. When asked about the tragedy, he said, "Why should kids be subjected to this kind of heinous act as a result of the murderer's problems in life?" Judge Sullivan, when reporters reached out, she declined to comment. The judicial executive responded that she couldn't discuss the case. But here's what we know from her previous statements. When asked about the bail reduction a year earlier, Sullivan said she was following requirements from a 2020 Supreme Court decision that said judges should find the least restrictive means to ensure a defendant's court appearance. She added, "Bail is really supposed to ensure their court appearances, but bail will not protect the community. Non-monetary bail conditions, such as electronic monitoring, are meant to ensure community protection. Except, it didn't protect the community, did it? It didn't protect Zi'Myra, who was 14 and had dreams and hopes and a future. It didn't protect Zi'Myra, who was 6 and still in first grade. It didn't protect Derek, who's now got to spend the rest of his life recovering from trauma no child should ever experience. And it sure as hell didn't protect Schinara, who died the day after her 34th birthday, because the system decided an accused child predator's right to affordable bail was more important than her children's right to be safe." Sullivan also questioned why Patterson hadn't gone to trial in the year since he posted bail. That's a good question, isn't it? Why was he still walking free a full year later, with his trial not scheduled until April 2024? The wheels of justice turn slow, until they don't turn at all. Look, here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't just about one judge or one case. This is about a system that's fundamentally broken when it comes to protecting victims, especially children. Court records show there were no restrictions on firearms in Patterson's bail conditions. Think about that. A man accused of sexually abusing children gets released, and nobody says, "Hey, maybe we should make sure he doesn't have access to guns." Bail reform is important. We shouldn't have people rotting in jail for years just because they're too poor to post bail for minor crimes. But when you're talking about someone accused of nearly a decade of child sexual abuse, that's not about poverty. That's about public safety. Here's what haunts me about this case. Patterson had almost no criminal history before the 2022 arrest, just a 2006 attempted theft conviction. So on paper, he looked low risk. But the charges told a different story. 9 felonies, multiple victims, a pattern of behavior spanning years, evidence of kidnapping, assault, abuse. At what point do we stop looking at someone's rap sheet and start looking at the actual accusations in front of us? Schinara, Zi'Myra, and Zi'Myra were laid to rest on December 29, 2023. Family and friends packed the funeral service, sharing stories about the woman who lit up every room she walked into and the children who never got to grow up. Derek. We don't know much about Derek's condition after those initial reports. The family has understandably kept his recovery private, but we know he survived. Against all odds, that 11-year-old boy survived. He's got a long road ahead. Physical therapy, counseling, learning to live with the trauma of losing his entire family in one horrific moment, and doing it all while still being a kid. Marvin Patterson? He's gone. He made sure he didn't have to face the consequences of his actions. No trial, no conviction, no accountability. And Judge Sullivan? She's still on the bench, still making bail decisions, still following the same guidelines that led to this tragedy. The system continues. Life goes on, except for 3 people who deserved so much better. You know what kills me? Schinara had just celebrated her birthday the day before, December 10th. She turned 34. Think about the last birthday you celebrated. Did you feel lucky to be alive? Did you think about all the birthdays still ahead of you? Schinara never got another one. Zi'Myra will never make it to her sweet 16. Zi'Myra will never lose her first tooth in 2nd grade. All because the system decided $10,000 and an ankle monitor was enough to keep a predator in check. So what do we learn from Schinara Patterson's story? We learn that bail reform, as important as it is, can't be a one-size-fits-all solution. We learn that ankle monitors and house arrest don't mean much when they're not enforced properly. We learn that the letter of the law and the spirit of justice aren't always the same thing. But most importantly, we learn that every decision made in a courtroom has real-world consequences. Judge Sullivan thought she was following the law. Patterson's defense attorney thought he was doing his job. The electronic monitoring system thought everything was working as intended. And 3 children paid for it with their lives. If you're a parent watching this, hold your kids a little tighter tonight. If you work in the justice system, remember that every case file represents real human beings whose lives are in your hands. And if you're a survivor of domestic violence or sexual abuse, please know you're not alone. There are resources. There are people who will help you. Don't wait until it's too late. Schinara Patterson was 34 years old. She loved her children more than life itself. She worked hard. She loved deeply. And she deserved so much better than what this system gave her. Kezia Cohn was 14. Zi'Myra Patterson was 6. They were innocent. They were loved. They mattered. Rest in power, Nara. Rest in peace, Kezia and Zi'Myra. You deserved a world that protected you. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment telling us what you think about bail reform and how we can better protect victims in our justice system. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who's in a dangerous situation, or someone who works in law enforcement or the courts, share this video. Let's make sure Schinara's death wasn't in vain. Next week, we're covering another case that exposed cracks in the system. Until then, stay safe out there.